into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey guys, welcome into the Manhattan After Show right here on AFTERBUZZTV.com. Season 1, Episode 13, we are at the finale. It was called Perestroika. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Bobby DeMuro, as always, with Marisa Serafini across the table.
Hello, everyone.
And a quick shout out to WGN. Thank them for promoting this after show this week with us. We had a lot of fun doing Manhattan. We had a lot of fun in the spring doing Salem with them. We'll talk about WGN a little bit more later. But 2 original shows, 2 original series into their lineup. So far, so good. We're fans of both, I know.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they have down the pipeline.
And, well, speaking of pipeline, let's talk about this atomic bomb pipeline today. There's plenty to get to and plenty to talk about. Let's start at the start. Typically on this show, we'll take 2 or 3 storylines and kind of weave them together. Because this is a season finale, exactly, everything comes to one situation. And we'll kind of cover everything as we go, but let's kind of go, you know, linear, I guess you'd say. Yeah. Go, whatever. So we start in Ellis Island, and we see the interrogator, our scary investigator guy, giving candy to a baby. That's always
creepy. With the lollipops, like, no, you do not trust him
at all. But we do establish that this is Abby's family, that Charlie is sponsoring them. We knew that this was an issue with Abby going forward, and we know that when you see this investigator, when you see this special agent, nothing good's going to come of it. So it's the perfect foreshadowing to the rest of the episode, which is Charlie and whomever else are going to be in trouble. And sure enough, they were.
Oh, yeah. And, like, he really played his part in tonight's episode. And the way he interrogates and just gets answers out of people and preys on everyone's vulnerabilities and the weaknesses. Oh, it's very interesting.
Well, let's talk a little bit about his interrogation.
We find out his name is actually Mr. Fisher.
Fisher, yeah.
I don't think we ever got his first name, but it's Fisher.
We didn't, and it's on IMDb and stuff, but I just want to be real clear about this. In the show, we can do research out of the show, and Lord knows we do. Right. But in the show, we were never given his name, and that's important. He's never been given a name, and now we know it.
Yeah. Which makes him all the more mysterious.
Exactly, because he's always been somebody that everybody thinks is real powerful. He said in the show today, you know, who do you report to? War, immigration, defense, justice. Blah, 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 justice. Yeah. Like, meaning, I report to everybody. What that means to me when he says every department he reports to, he's reporting directly to the president or the vice president or whomever. Yeah. It's not a department, it's the
Justice, Treasury, War, Immigration. He covers a lot of bases.
You cover a lot of stuff there. Yeah. Or you're totally rogue and nobody's called you on it yet. Right? You're just doing your own thing and nobody knows, which would be actually a great twist in season 2 if he were the double agent. But that's neither here nor there. Let's focus on this. So we see Oppenheimer, obviously. We get just about 2 seconds of Callie. We get a little bit of Liza. She doesn't function hugely in this episode. But Oppenheimer knocking on the door and telling Frank, you're running the show, get a comb. First things first, Oppenheimer, get a new hat. Not a huge fan of the hat, but that's okay.
But it's nice to see Oppenheimer really serious this time. I mean, every time we see him, he's very philosophical, and we're not, as the audience member, we're not really sure if he's fully there yet. But tonight, when like something was going wrong, he was director like he should be, and when something goes wrong, he's taking effect.
Oppenheimer wearing Pharrell's hat.
Or is Pharrell wearing his hat?
Because Oppenheimer was like 60 years beforehand.
Yeah,
good point. No, you're right about Oppenheimer, and it was good to see him as questionable as Frank's tactics have been this entire season. We know Frank is capable and smart, and we've been led to believe that implosion is the way to go, and it seems like implosion is the right way. So it's good for Frank to finally get his comeuppance, and Oppenheimer to say, implosion is it. You're the guy. You're meeting the Secretary of War. Get ready.
Right, because even Oppenheimer has someone above him that he has to report to, and when his project's not personally working, then he's in trouble as well. So it all just trickles down, and you see all the bureaucratic system that is the U.S. Army and just the government. Yeah, no, that's actually a great point. And Oppenheimer's main point was not, let's figure out the bomb, because he knows that's Frank's gig, that's the scientist's gig. Oppenheimer's main point was, we need to show there's no change of leadership, it's a smooth transition, you need to meet the Secretary of War. And his last point was, buy a comb. Buy a comb. You're a mess. You're a mess. You need to look the part. I don't care if you are the part. I know we can figure out implosion, but to save my ass, talking about Oppenheimer, you need to look the part. That's exactly it. Yeah. And he did buy a comb. It turned out not to matter. Clean yourself up. Spoiler alert. It turned out not to matter. Okay, first things first. Last week, if you're new on the show, last week we spent like 5 minutes discussing how we had never seen Abby and Charlie's son. We hadn't seen him enough. We have, but we couldn't remember him as well. We couldn't remember him. As we should have. They were terrible parents because nobody ever took care of him. They're both doing their own thing. There's no kid. A lot of Joey today. We saw Joey. A lot of Joey. They answered our question. It's almost as if the writers were watching our after show and then rewrote and reshot the finale this week. Just for us. I doubt that happened. Probably not. But still, it was good to see Joey, so there's a little more realistic. He's more of a toddler. Yeah. He's older than me. Yeah, he's running around swinging on swings and stuff like that. He's a little bit bigger. Yeah. He's not an infant, which we knew. But it was good to at least see him and at least see Abby be a mother. Even though he's not a driving story in this. No. But the reason I bring him up is obviously Charlie gets... important for her interrogation. Very important for her interrogation. Charlie gets taken away, and very important for her emotions, because once Charlie's pulled out, she flips out about them potentially taking Joey, which they didn't do. Yeah. But then that's when we see her really flip out, and I think that's when gravity hits Abby. In that scene. How serious everything is when it's affecting their family. Yeah. Not just Charlie and her relationship with him, but the son. And Charlie tries to get out of it. I mean, to jump ahead a couple scenes, but on this topic, Charlie offers the divorce. He says, take Joey, go to Massachusetts. I'm not going to contest it. This is when things were looking very bad for Charlie, but take it, just be done with me. All fall on my sword. Save yourself. Yeah. And I think this was not because I don't love you anymore. It's because I do love you that you have to leave me. Yeah. So. Which was probably at that moment the right thing for Charlie to do. And at that moment, Abby should have probably taken that. Now, she didn't. Because I think it was true love that kept her there. Was it true love, though? Because we've talked a lot about Abby's affairs. It's hard. It's rough right now to really distinguish, because I think Charlie giving her the option of divorce, take it and leave, I felt that was true love from Charlie. Yeah. But then her staying, I felt it was true love to stay with Joey, because Joey's getting infected now too. Stand by your man. But she could have stayed with Joey and gone. Son. She could have stayed with Joey and gone to Massachusetts. You know? He offered. He said, take Joey. I won't contest the divorce. Start your life in Massachusetts. Be with your family. Yeah, but right now she's literally stuck because they're holding her for interrogation. So she can't really physically leave yet. But I think if Charlie had been able, in that situation, and obviously it changed, if Charlie had been able to fall on his own sword and say, I did it, Abby wasn't involved, you know, Fisher thinks Abby was involved, she wasn't, here's what's going on, that was probably the best deal she could have gotten at that point, because she didn't know how it was going to turn out, obviously. She didn't know Charlie was going to walk into the room with the Secretary of War at the end of the episode. Yeah. She had no idea what Frank was doing. Nope. So at that point, that was probably the best move for her to take. I just don't know if, like, did she stay because she was scared? Did she stay because she's so sheltered she has no idea what to do? Or did she actually stay because of true love? I mean, if she stayed because of true love doesn't have an affair with your neighbor while your husband's working. That's not true love. I think it's the former, that she stayed because she didn't know what to do. And she doesn't know what's going on. And she still probably doesn't know what's going on. She's very sheltered. She's not a woman of the world. We've discussed this a lot. Oh, yeah. She's a woman of a very specific community that has not seen a lot. She's not traveled a lot. She's not seen, you know, quote unquote, the real world, or whatever you want to say. But I think she's smart enough to know how to get out. I mean, she figured out the whole train system when she went to Santa Fe to visit her family, and so I think she's smart enough to figure out how to get to Massachusetts on her own. Oh, physically, logistically, yeah. I just mean emotionally, I don't think she's smart enough to figure it out. Oh, no. I don't think she's smart enough to... She's very distraught right now. Yeah, and she's not in a good position. No. But hey, that's neither here nor there. We do see a lot of Fisher interrogating Charlie, and that's a great group of scenes. Yeah, I loved how they filmed this, how the camera was revolving around them. It was very much like Predator on prey. It's very intense. Yeah, and Fisher never ever loses composure ever about anything, although he did raise his voice a little bit with Charlie. The null hypothesis thing was kind of interesting. Yeah, and I love how Fisher did this, because science is one of the only things Charlie really understands, and to break it down into science so he can understand all the questions and try to get the answers is a very smart on Fisher to do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Science.
it's
like I said in our very first after show, like how Liza understands science, and that's the only way to break down the relationship between her and Frank. This is how Charlie understands everything between science.
And the thing about Fisher, I know a null hypothesis is not nearly the most complicated scientific idea ever, and you and I could become quote-unquote experts at null hypothesis in about another 10 minutes. We know the basics, but it's not that hard to learn the broad definitions of it. But Fisher has to have some kind of scientific background to do all the interrogation that he does. Or he has an unbelievable group of you know, investigator scientists working under him who can then feed him information in layman's terms and say, here's the technical stuff of what Charlie did or the equations or whatever. Here's what this means for you. Here's what to interrogate him on. But Fisher has to know everything. He must be a scientist too. Yeah,
I was just going to say, I wonder if he has a degree or PhD in science or chemistry or anything.
He in physics or something. He has to.
Yeah.
There's no way he couldn't. Because if he gets in an interrogation room with Charlie and Charlie starts saying, here's why these equations did this, blah, 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 here's what I was doing, he has to know how to respond. You know, Fisher has to know how to respond. If you don't know enough,
it's probably a prerequisite for his job position that he's in. He has to know this in order to get it.
I want to learn more about him.
People have to have masters before they can teach in certain colleges and stuff like that.
In certain colleges. I want to know more about him in season 2. That's one of my goals. We'll talk about predictions and stuff later, but that's one of my goals. So then we see an interesting scene with Liza and Rose in Reed's cabin.
This was really kind of sad.
What do you make of that scene specifically? I can't talk today. Specifically at the end when Rose says to Liza, quote, "Take care of Frank. He's on the throne now." And she paused. She said, "Take care of Frank." She made that little pause there, which is intentional.
I think it was Rose's just learning from her past mistakes. She couldn't save her own husband with Reed, and he killed himself. So, you know, passing on that advice, like, take care of your husband, because now he's in the same position that Reed Akeley was in. And if you don't, then you're going to have the same results that I did with my husband. I couldn't save him.
Did you get... Maybe this is too much, but Rose, from what we've seen about her, is a little bit like Abby. Very sheltered, it seemed like. She was very optimistic. We saw that scene with her and Reed last episode, right before Reed killed himself. And she was like, you're amazing. You know, you're going to meet with the president. You're a hero. You're so great, baby. She didn't say that, but you know what I'm saying. I think it was
also, like, Rose at that point was in denial of everything, and now that she has, everything has really come to fruition, and now she realized the severity of everything and all the, you know, Reed killing himself is like, okay, I purposely was blind to this, so now I'm going to help Liza, if she's going to, like, turn away, that, like, actually help her open her eyes, I guess.
In total speculation, I'll be interested to hear your point of view on this. Does Rose maybe think that Reed did not kill himself, but was killed? Like it was an inside job? Because Rose said to Liza, take care of Frank, he's on the throne now, i.e. he's the king, i.e. he's the target of an assassination potentially. Did she maybe think that?
Interesting. Maybe because going back to last episode when she thought the government was great and Reed was great doing everything he was, it might be like an inside job.
And she finally is open. Her eyes are open, like Abby's maybe are. Rose on a smaller level, from being ignorant to all this and being optimistic and saying, baby, you're a hero. In one episode after Reed dies, her eyes open up and she says, wait a minute, whether or not he was a hero, maybe it was an inside job, there's something else going on. I didn't know everything. What's going on? And
she also said the line, it was the gadget that killed Reed, not Reed killed himself. It was the gadget, which is the government operation overall of this. So it might actually be an inside job, like her mentality. I never thought of that.
And we know it wasn't an inside job, although in a way I guess it was an inside job because the government situation did drive Reed to do it. But if, you know, a military policeman didn't pull the trigger.
In it.
But maybe to Rose, and this is speculation, we don't know her well enough, but maybe she thinks something like that, and maybe it was an inside job, and maybe she's sitting there and saying, Liza, don't be ignorant like me. The same thing could happen to Frank. And oh, by the way, maybe the same thing does end up happening to Frank in a different way.
Right, watch out for the government.
I don't know. We'll see. And I don't think we'll ever see Rose again, so maybe it's a moot point.
No, I think that's because the car took her storyline's done.
Yeah. Which, hey, okay, whatever.
And so is Reed.
All right, so we get back to Charlie being interrogated. We find out that Reed, apparently, got Charlie's family out of Europe.
Yes, I think this was interesting. Now knowing that this little tidbit, is Reed as bad of a guy as we thought he was?
I don't think we ever thought Reed was a bad guy. I think Reed was maybe not the most competent manager of scientists. I think he was the manager of a group that Thin Man was a failure. So
he had good intentions.
But I don't think he was ever a bad dude. I think initially, we've talked about this. We were initially in the first few episodes kind of set up to think, oh, he's the bad guy, he's Frank's opponent, but it was much more complicated than that. He and Frank had a different relationship. He and Charlie had a different relationship. He's not the worst guy in the world, and we felt bad last week when he died.
Yeah, and I feel bad even more this week when he died, because knowing how much he did help Charlie and Abby by extension, it shows that maybe because he helped others, maybe he could have been helped even more. Like, he could have been saved.
Yeah.
And we couldn't save him.
Now, is there any potential that Charlie is lying about Reed getting his family out of Europe?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Because it is easy to lie about a guy who's dead. You can say the guy who's dead did a lot of stuff because you can't ask the guy who's dead.
Because even in the interrogation room, when Charlie found out that the family, like, he was surprised himself.
Yeah.
So that was genuine. Like, he didn't even know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. You never, I mean, do you ever know anymore? How do you know?
It's hard.
How do you even know anymore?
Interrogation gets the truth out of everybody.
Let's talk Abby in the interrogation room in a second. Before we do that, though, real quick, middle of the show shout out. First off, again, thanks to WGN for promoting this and promoting the after show. Guys, we've been here all year. Where you been? No, but thank you guys for promoting us now. In the spring next year, Salem's going to come back. We do the Salem after show for WGN. That'll be back next year. Manhattan's been greenlit for a season 2, so that'll be back. I'm not sure when next year, 12 months from now, something like that.
Something to look forward to.
Whatever it is, but it's definitely coming back, so thank goodness. And if you're new to AfterBuzz, if you're here from the WGN folks, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all those places at AfterBuzz TV, Instagram too.
Serafini TV.
And I'm at Bobby DeMuro on Twitter, as are you, Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. So follow us. We'll do that again at the end of the show, but just wanted to give WGN a shout out real fast for that. They've been good to us. They've been giving us, between Manhattan and Salem, they've given us like 25, 26 like awesome episodes of television.
Really good content to talk about. So I'm excited.
When we, you know, our job is to talk about TV, so hey, give us good stuff. I can't complain.
Yeah, we keep talking.
We can talk all day. Okay, let's talk about Abby being interrogated. I am surprised. We didn't see a ton of her interrogation.
But we did see enough with Charlie's interrogation about Abby.
Exactly. And I'm surprised actually how well Abby was holding up. It'll be interesting to see, though. Fisher has those photos. Fisher tells Charlie, Abby's been cheating on you. You know, Charlie thinks it's Lansfield. It's obviously Elodie.
Yeah.
Or it was Elodie before they left. I would be interested to see if Abby actually flipped like Fisher said she did, or if Abby stayed solid like Charlie said she did. Because Fisher could still have gotten those photos. They could have scoured Elodie's home. They could have found him another way and learned of the affair.
Scoured their own home and found
exactly,
him.
Yeah. And that could have been Fisher's in to try to prove to Charlie, oh, she flipped, when she still may not have flipped. Physically in the interrogation room, she still may not have given anything up. So I'll be interested to see. So I guess I'll just ask you, do you think Abby flipped and told Fisher about everything that her and Charlie got into and her planting the papers, or do you think she stayed quiet?
I think she stayed quiet.
I do too.
Only because I think this was just Fisher's way to tell Charlie, is like, yes, your wife told me everything, just to get him to buckle.
Yep. And he didn't buckle.
Yeah, because we never even saw Abby's response to giving all the answers, and we only saw Fisher saying that she did. So I don't believe it whatsoever.
And not only that, but if Abby had told them what she did to plant those documents, Abby would not have been going back home. Abby would not have gone back to see Joey. Helen would not have knocked on that door.
Yeah,
and at the end of the episode,
the whole place was a mess.
And by the end of the episode, Charlie would not have walked back in with the Secretary of War. No matter how bad they needed him as a scientist, if he was framing other scientists, it would have violated compartmentalization, and there would have been a penalty.
Serious penalty.
So yeah, so, I agree with you.
In fairness, Abby did not say anything.
I don't think Abby said anything. It turns out Paul's not going to say anything. He's not coming back, but he's going to be silent.
He's very jaded right now. Very hurt, sensitive.
Poor Paul. I'm just glad Fritz is here. It turns out, we'll talk about Meeks later, but it turns out Meeks has problems. Paul's got problems. Helen's a little iffy. I'm just glad Fritz is consistent.
I'm upset with Paul, because we did see episodes back that he was questioning his whole loyalty with Frank. He was going to leave Team Implosion anyways.
Yeah.
And then to see him, in the end, still leave, I'm just upset.
Yeah.
That, like, he didn't have that character. We thought he had that character growth. That was like, no, he's sticking with Team Implosion. He's sticking with Frank. No, he just still left.
Well, remember,
I had hope for him.
I didn't actually have hope for him because he's kind of left every situation he's ever been in. He told us about his dad being a blacksmith, right?
Right.
He left that. He ran from that. Okay, you want to get to a better life, that's fine, but you still run from your father like you're ashamed of it. Then you never really fit in at Oxford.
And then you run from Team Implosion.
You run from that stuff. You had that kid. Do you remember that episode early on with the child and the
He ran from that.
He ran from the kid. He ran from Britain literally to come to America. For whatever reason it is, he ran from Britain, which may or may not have been a good decision. He still ran, and now he runs from Team Implosion. Paul's been running from everything.
I mean, it makes sense that he would run, but I'd hope that this was the one thing that would keep him to stay.
Well, Helen was the one thing to keep him to stay. He tried to stay with Helen, and she turned him down.
Gone on this team too, yeah.
And she turned him down. Remember the little marriage proposal?
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever ask unless you're sure of the answer, right?
Yeah.
And don't ever ask at a basketball game. Totally unrelated, just off topic. Like those people who ask women to marry them at basketball games.
Right, no.
Oh.
It's all that pressure, but
too much pressure.
We digress.
Anyways, that's just a life tip for y'all. Okay, so Paul runs. Abby apparently held quiet. Paul apparently will hold quiet. What about Glenn? Poor Glenn. I like Glenn.
I mean, I like Glenn, but you can tell that he's still going to be friends with Frank. Even when they had the conversation when he was cleaning up his office, I still think their friendship is going to remain intact, even though it's different. He's not a part of the team anymore, but Frank still has a friend, an ally. Real
quick question about Glenn, though, because Frank asked him where he's going to go. Are you going to go back to Columbia or Yale or blah, blah, blah? And Glenn says, Moscow.
Moscow.
Now,
Russia?
Later, Glenn says all old bachelors are going west, which to me maybe meant California. Mm-hmm. But
he's going east.
Well, here's my question. Moscow, in the middle of a raging war, and hundreds of thousands of Russians are dying. Is he joking about going to Moscow because of this whole Russian secrets thing? Or is he actually going to go to Moscow? Was that a tongue-in-cheek response to Frank?
I think it might have, but I wouldn't put anything past Glenn and anything past the show. That, no throwaway line like that. I mean, that's serious. And especially when you go to the title of this episode, Perestroika. Yeah, sorry, I completely butchered that. But that's a Russian term as well.
Yeah.
So there's something more lying with that, just that one line.
I have a really tough time believing that Glenn will end up in Moscow, but I don't know. Russia is about the last place you want to be in the 1940s at this point.
Or maybe it's the best place to be undercover.
I'm just thinking about not getting shot.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but I think Glenn can hold out for himself.
I don't know, or maybe he's old and he doesn't care. I would just be very surprised. Russia, to me, when he said that, I was like, okay.
Interesting.
Interesting. Speaking of interesting,
goodness.
Let's talk about Meeks.
Meeks. I mean, we shouldn't be as surprised considering all the episodes. There was always big storylines with Fritz, with Charlie, and all the guys, even Helen. But Meeks is one of the characters that we didn't really focus a full episode on. So it makes sense that we wouldn't really pay attention to him in a way.
Knowing now that Meeks is working undercover for somebody in some fashion, we don't really yet know who. This reminds me of the very first episode, or was it the second maybe, after Sid Lau died. Dunleavy kills Sid Lau. Sid Lau was taking papers off base. It's debatable what reason. He says he was trying to patent them or whatever. Whatever the case is, maybe, let's say Sid was doing some sort of undercover work somewhere because you don't take papers off base. Who was the guy, Marisa, who got so mortally offended at Dunleavy for having killed Sid that he punched Dunleavy at a bar?
I'd have to think about that.
It was Meeks.
Meeks, yeah.
So this makes me think, now seeing Meeks' story, that Meeks wasn't just defending Sid Lau in his death when he punched Dunleavy at the bar because Sid was a friend. Meeks was also defending their shared interest as double agents in some way, or spies, or whatever you want to call it, their shared undercover interest. And maybe those two guys were working together. Sid died. Meeks is not only mad about his friend dying, but mad about their undercover situation. Speculation, but I don't know.
Maybe, or is it a completely individual thing?
It could be.
But Sid's story, we had he wanted to sell patents to help his family out.
But is that really true?
We don't know.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. With Meeks, is there another story for him why he's in it personally? Is his family being held by people, by the Germans or whatever that's going on in this war? It's what is his personal motivation to be passing around information?
Yeah.
Why is he caught in this?
He seems like the name Meeks is not an accident. They don't name characters by accident. Meeks, okay? That's what he is. He's meek. He's little. He's kind of like nerdy. I don't mean that in this pejorative way, but he's kind of got glasses. He's a little scrawny. He's whatever. Yeah. Real pale and kind of tiny. He's the opposite of like Fritz, who's like gregarious, or like, Charlie, who's good looking. It's Meeks, Like you just want to...
meek and humble.
Yeah. And it's to know that that's the guy who may turn out to be your double agent or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Last one you'd ever suspect. Whew, I don't know. And I guess at this point with Meeks, let's bring up Sid Lau because we're talking about him. We see him throughout the episode. We see him in the reflection in Oppenheimer's car. We see him again sitting in Frank's office.
Yep.
Where Frank brilliantly
Frank's actually
takes pictures of all the equations and then puts paper in his ear and walks off, which I thought was hilarious. He's like, "You can't hear me. I can't hear you."
Which is literally like just the visual simulation voices in his head.
Yeah, which is interesting. Now, I would be interested to hear what you think about this. But the significance I think of Sid Lau, and I said this before I saw the end of the show, obviously, but now that I've seen the end of the episode, the significance of Sid Lau is not. I don't think it insinuates Frank is crazy. We know Frank is definitely a little out there, but I don't think it insinuates Frank is crazy. I don't think it insinuates he can't lead people anymore, be a scientist. I don't think that's what they're going for, that he's quote-unquote off his rock or anything.
No.
I think it's more Sid Lau is a message to Frank, and he says it. What's one more death? Hundreds of thousands of people are dying. 10 million people are dying a year.
That's a lot of numbers.
What's one more death? And originally... when I saw it in real time, I said, oh, what's one more death? Sid Lau is telling Frank, don't feel guilty about Charlie.
Don't feel guilty about me that I died.
Well, but now seeing how this ended, now seeing how Frank fell on his sword, I think Frank looked at it and said, Sid Lau's right. What's one more death? If it's only one more death, I can be the one more death.
I can be the casualty.
I can be the guy. Put it on me. I will fall on my sword. I said it like 9 times.
Yeah.
Put it on me.
Because he did.
And I will, because I know that Charlie can then take over the project. I know that Americans can win the war. I know that our soldiers can stop dying. So what's one more death? I'm the one more death, Frank speaking. I'm the one more death because I will end this war. Glenn told Frank in a separate scene, where is it? Frank, you were the man to end this war. You're right. Yeah. Frank, put in motion every single thing in this Manhattan Project.
And Charlie's the one executing it, but Frank's the one that started
So in a way, even though Frank doesn't build the bomb physically, this is him ending the war. This is him saying, I'm guilty, let Charlie work, let them figure out implosion, that'll end the war. The catalyst is me saying that I'm guilty.
And I'm the casualty of war.
And he is the one more death. Yep. Obviously, more soldiers logistically are going to die before they implement the bomb, but he's the one more death. I think that's what it looks like.
I exactly think that too, because Sid's also the voice and conscience in his head.
Yeah, and obviously, after that scene, Frank goes home, sits down with Liza, they hold hands, and he says, I love you. How many times have we heard him say, I love you this season?
Hardly ever.
None, maybe 1 or 2.
Maybe once.
And it hasn't been for a lot of episodes. He's been having an affair with Paloma. So for him to say that to Liza, again, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's not the denotation, it's the connotation. I love you does not mean I love you in that situation. I love you means I really am glad we were together. Goodbye. That's
this felt like his goodbye, especially, and like laying out all the specific details that the government can clearly record. It's like this was literally his last words.
And it's not only him doing this for the government, Frank doing this so they can record every word he says and whatever, but I think it also gives Liza closure. Liza can't figure out why crops are dying, why the government is the way it is, why what's going on is going on at Los Alamos. And Frank says, you know what? We're building a damn atomic bomb. This is why the crops don't grow. This is why our life is like this. This is why everybody's crazy. This is why people disappear. We are building an atomic bomb. And Liza, being the scientist like you mentioned, sits there and says, doesn't say it, but in her head kind of says, now I get it. She has to grapple with it, which she struggles with. But in her head in that scene, she says, it makes sense now. Oh, crap. Millions of people are going to die. The one question I have for you in this scene, to jump to this Frank and Liza scene when he's being bugged, he says to her that they're going to detonate the bomb in an abandoned area as a show of strength and that nobody will ever mess with the Allies anymore.
And there'll never be another war.
And there'll never be another war. The never be another war thing's obviously ignorant, but he doesn't actually believe they're going to detonate it in an abandoned area. This thing's going to wipe out cities, and he knows that.
Right, and that's what he said. It's supposed to wipe out cities.
Yeah, and then he says, but don't worry,
cities
nobody's going to die.
People, children.
It never. It's like, Frank, you're smarter than this. Maybe Charlie is young enough and doe-eyed enough to think, oh, we're just going to detonate it as a show of strength.
Or maybe that's just Frank's mentality of, like, we're just dropping this bomb. We're not affecting anyone. We're just ending the war. Like, he doesn't even see the people that he's going to affect.
Maybe he doesn't.
He doesn't.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
That's literally just how he sees it. We're building a bomb and we're going to drop it.
Maybe that's true.
No one's there, but man, people really are there.
No, I mean, in knowing in real history how the bomb worked and what happened when they dropped the bombs, that was kind of a consensus that, like, hey, we can never do this again.
Yeah, exactly.
That's enough of that. So maybe, I don't know.
My question to you, do you think Liza's going to handle all this information now that she knows? Or she only knows half of it, really? She just now knows that they're building an atomic bomb. But then, you know, we see the other half of the recording when she leaves the room. Like, why?
I don't know how she's going to handle it.
Because she just walks out.
What could she do? She's on town council. That's great. But what could she really do? Yeah, she won by a
landslide. Maybe she'll use her voice to speak out and maybe have this project not so secret anymore.
I don't know if she would...
But then also, because Rose even tells her it's the gadget, and then put 2 and 2 together, Liza knows.
That's interesting. And now that Frank is gone, now that we've seen him physically taken off base...
with the bag over his head, not looking too good.
What does Liza do? Or does Liza shut her mouth and leave with Callie? Because Glenn even said about Callie, tell my goddaughter, she can drink and smoke all the cigarettes she wants for the rest of her life. Which is an allusion to, the war is about to end, life goes on, you will have a full life ahead of you, Callie. Maybe Liza takes that attitude and says...
Liza leaves too.
Now I know, let me just leave, I'm done with it here, town council doesn't matter, Reed Akeley's dead, that's one thing, my husband's gone.
My husband's gone.
That's another thing.
What's my purpose here?
Let's go.
Because I can't use my botany here.
Yeah.
It serves no purpose, so yeah, maybe she does leave.
Which would be interesting. I don't know. Yeah. Listen, hey, let's get into that stuff. I think we've talked a lot about the episode. Before we do predictions, last question I have for you, though. Season-wide, the entire season, all 13 episodes we've seen, final thoughts, what do you think?
I really enjoyed it. I think, like, the whole... I'm sure not exactly all these certain storylines happen. Of course, this is fictional in a way. But I appreciate all the scientists and the government and all the secrets that went into this project, and like how much work people put into, and how much like mudslinging there was in between, you know, just all these calculations and what the government, what people actually went through to build this atomic bomb. I really like I have serious appreciation for it, and I think this show really owes to that, because I don't think a lot of people realize what really went on.
I can't wait for season 2 if we're going to see more physical. Again, we never really saw a lot of bombs blow up in season 1. Like, none. No. So I want to see a little more physical testing in season 2.
Physical building of the bomb.
You know, the actual, you know, stuff blowing up in the desert.
Because implosion now has to work. There's team plan B, the contingency plan that
became plan A.
Oppenheimer says, oh, we always kept this team afloat. Yeah, I don't think so. It's like, no, this is the only team saving your ass right now.
Implosion has to work. I want to see a little Enola Gay in season 2.
Yeah.
I want to see him actually drop the bomb. I don't know what's going to happen, where they go with this. But I want to see a little bit of stuff. But I am definitely a fan. I think as much as we like Salem, another WGN show, Salem was good. There were definitely some holes in Salem, and we talked about them. There are holes in every show. There are holes in this one. But I think this was an even stronger effort than Salem. I think this has maybe a longer shelf life going forward. No pun intended on shelf life with nuclear, atomic bombs. But I think this show probably has even a little bit more promise than Salem. I would think. I think Manhattan's a real strong effort for them. Yeah,
and it's also that, like, because we know World War II happened over years, it already has a certain timeline that it could keep going for.
Yeah. So we'll see, I guess. Frank falls on his sword. That's the 10th time I said it. Apparently, he
saves Charlie, though.
He saves Charlie, which is good.
Takes the blame.
Maybe we never see Frank again.
Maybe. But I don't think that they would execute him. I know that's one of the penalties for being a spy and doing all the stuff that he's done. But I think Frank is such a big character in the show that they're not going to kill him. they're definitely going to interrogate him some more.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's do a real quick round of predictions for the start of season 2, and then we'll be out of here.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right, so let's start with that. Frank, season 2, what do we see from Frank?
Okay, like I said, I don't think they're going to kill him. I think he's going to end up working with Glenn.
In Russia?
Maybe in Russia, because we know Glenn's leaving. Frank is leaving. They're not going to kill him. He's going to get released somehow because he's too smart. He's going to be working on calculations and probably implosion on the side. But he's going to partner up with Glenn, working in some capacity for the government.
And we see Richard Lavro, who we've alluded to many times, going to Russia. That's an interesting idea because Frank, let's take this. Let's take your idea.
Maybe he'll partner up with Niels Bohr.
Well, listen, let's take your idea one step further because I think that has promise. What about this prediction? Frank has talked a lot about how this is the war to end all wars. The bomb will end war. Peace will reign forever. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. And in American history, the Korean War is going to come up pretty soon after World War II. So what happens if Frank and Glenn go to Russia or something, or even stay in America and get disillusioned when the bombs get dropped, millions of Japanese people die, they're disillusioned at the heartache and the terror and the tragedy, and they realize that this isn't the war to end all war, but there's another war on the horizon, and they go to Russia or something and they become not necessarily traitors from America, but more peace activists, as unrealistic as it may be, more peace activists to try to stop people from building bombs.
Use the science for good.
Yeah.
I can understand that, yeah.
Because they're so disillusioned with the fact that we thought we were genuinely using this for good to end war, and that hasn't happened. So I know that's a real long sell prediction, but I don't know.
I still want Frank to be a part of this team implosion, be a part of the bomb, because he's done so much. He was there from the beginning, and I kind of just want to see him there to the end in some shape or form.
I think, in my outlandish predictions, I think that everybody on Team Implosion will either leave or is a double agent, except Fritz is going to run the team, and young Joey is going to be the new physicist on the block. He's going to be a 7-year-old whiz kid next season.
He's going to be the next prodigy.
You wanted Charlie as a young prodigy. We got even younger.
Maybe. I mean, we haven't really seen Joey speak. But,
it's cool. He can do equations.
There's potential. But do we think Fritz is a strong enough character, strong enough leader to take on Team Implosion?
Yeah, I think Fritz, I don't know if he'll lead it, but I think Fritz is strong enough.
He's taking care of the metallurgy lab.
I think Fritz is strong enough. I think he's got the best attitude. He's got the best head on his shoulders. The only question with Fritz, if and when we find out Meeks is a double agent or whatever he's doing, Paul's already gone, and Fritz is going to figure that out. Helen's got some issues, but she's staying around for now. And you've got Frank totally gone. Can Fritz handle all that loss and all that confusion? Or is Fritz going to say, all my friends are gone, the people who brought me here are gone, I'm going to take Jeannie, and I'm going to go get married and leave?
I still have Jeannie.
Yeah, maybe him and Jeannie just leave because he doesn't want to be around all of Charlie's guys.
Yeah, I just don't, like, Fritz is the lovable big teddy bear, and I don't think he's a strong enough character and a person to take on everything that Frank did. We know Frank had some sociological issues and whatnot to lead all this, but I don't think Fritz is too innocent of a guy.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Okay.
That's it. Season 1 of Manhattan is complete. 13 episodes in, 13 episodes done. Real quick social media stuff. Again, guys, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, AfterBuzz TV. Hit subscribe on YouTube if you're watching the video. If you are listening to the podcast on iTunes, you can also hit subscribe. You can leave comments and reviews and all that good stuff. We'd love to hear from you guys there. And speaking of comments, you can talk to us on Twitter or Instagram. So, Marissa, where can they find you on Twitter?
You can all follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Serafini TV.
Serafini TV. I'm on Twitter at Bobby DeMuro, on Instagram at Mr. Bobby DeMuro. Thank you guys very much for tuning in all season long for Manhattan. We'll be back for season 2 next year.
Yeah.
That's it. See you guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.